Hello, everybody. This is Sul, and I'm covering the very strong, for the time being, Neptune. Neptune is in Pisces, as you all know, and it's creating a lot of interesting scenarios for us, both worldwide and in our lives. And I think we've seen what it is capable of doing just by looking a little bit at the American election and seeing what kind of confusion and chaos and uncertainty this election has brought us, not just in the United States of America, but actually globally. So it's interesting how this election, especially, I've been reflecting a lot about what would Neptune in Pisces on the South Node in Pisces do for us? And I thought, November will be interesting. And it really turned out to be a little bit more than interesting. And it really proves to us that we are now one global village, whether we like it or not. We're all in this soup together. And we've all been deceived, and we've all been tricked, and we've all been fooled, and we've all been trying to find the truth. And still, it is difficult to know in this time and age what is truth. But this is the essence and the core of Neptune, as we will see shortly. I will do a very brief presentation on this fabulous planet that I've been very inspired by the work of Maurice Fernandez, my teacher. And he wrote, I don't know whether or not it was in 2003 or 2002, he wrote a book called Neptune, Pisces, and the 12th House. And it was for me at that time a groundbreaking experience to read it. I had Neptune transiting my sun for the time being, and getting that book was like understanding what I was going through. And I've read every book on Neptune ever since, but this work stands for me as one of the most important and influential work in my particular development. So I'm very grateful to be able to share this with you. And in evolutionary astrology, we know that everything is related to a spectrum of consciousness. We have every planetary principle in our lives. It spans from the most subconscious, from the most unaware responses, and it just fans out to become conscious and even, enlightened. We enlighten the archetype. This is our journey. It is our task in our chart too, to shed as much consciousness into our life as possible, because we know with consciousness, eventually we will make things work. And it is difficult, evolution, because when you do something for the first time, it is very difficult. But then when you repeat it and you rehearse and you practice, it gets easier and easier and easier. And that applies for Neptune too, even though this is one of the planets that people find, well, to be very difficult to actually try to mold, or, it's one of the transcendentals. It's one of those planets that is beyond Saturn. And whenever you get beyond Saturn, which is the visible, the last frontier of our physical world, we move into the metaphysical. We move into quantum theory. We move into the deeper layers of our psyche that is not easy to make visible. But if you have a prominent Neptune, as you do, Star, you will see that life will eventually unfold in a way that will make this planetary principle work for you, instead of you sort of swimming around in the sea of Neptune trying to figure out what is this, And it is, you can compare it with, having a dog and training the dog, and instead of the dog walking you for a walk, you start to sort of decide where the dog is supposed to go and whether or not this is enough, etc. And boundaries is, of course, a big theme with Neptune. It is the everything of Neptune, is setting the right kind of boundaries and understanding what that is. But it's such a grand theme that, and it is Neptune, so it can be a little bit confusing. But we will try. I will now share with you a little PowerPoint that I created. And Carolyn, you joined me for the Neptune And I think, Star, did you too? You joined me for the Neptune workshop? No, you didn't. All right, doesn't matter. This is just a little fragment of that workshop that I did. And I am sharing this. Am I not? It's coming from... So it's just, we have like a limited space of time here. So I'm just trying to do this as efficiently as possible, if that is possible with Neptune, you know. So I wrote Neptune from the womb to the will and back to the womb. And that's how I remember I heard a guru once say, yes, you become like a child again, but this time you're fully awake. You're not the innocent, you know, you're not completely lost in your own innocence. You're awake. You know what's going on. And you can see, you know, in the eyes of people like Dalai Lama, for instance, you see the spark of the child in his eyes, but you could also see the depth of his wisdom. Neptune is a planetary principle of wisdom, devotion and wisdom. And making that work, well, it takes a lot of awakening. It takes a lot of self-disciplining, and it takes a lot of truth and honesty, not just... well, mostly in relation to yourself, but truth is very difficult to understand. What is truth? So the evolution of Neptune is not an easy one. There's a lot of loss involved. You have to let go. This is one of the key words of Neptune, is letting go. And there are different stages, and people will find themselves perhaps working particularly with different stages of Neptune and spend an entire life trying to figure out these particular stages. And that's nice, you know, we're in no hurry. If we gave us a space to work with these stages properly instead of running towards enlightenment, we might have a better and more joyful ride trying to get there. That's my opinion, and it certainly helped me think like that. Neptune is the unity principle. It is the astral sea. If we just take it generally, I would say Neptune, the Pisces planet, you know, the sign of Pisces, is the one that unites all. All, we are one. This is what we hear in spiritual circles. We are all one. This is what we hear now. And being one, it actually invites in a principle taken from quantum mechanics called entanglement. What we realized through this kind of physics is that two particles, even though they're not, you know, they're not in the same location, they can be distanced from each other. They react to stimuli that is only exposed towards one of the particles. The other particle reacts. It's telepathy. And that's part of being one. You know, it's just being, you just get information. Look at the immunity system that is, well, it's an attempt to see what is an aura, what is an energy system. And it is not completely, you can see the outer edges. It is not completely, it's not concrete. We don't have a wall around us. We might wish we had one, but we don't. So these porous areas of our beings where we are one with everyone else poses a lot of challenges, not just for our perception of what is what, where do I begin and where does the other one start, but it also poses a great challenge for us in our relationship to the bigger waves and the bigger cycles of life. Like, for instance, now when the collective is depressed, you know, there's been a collective depression now. And the Piscean, the Neptunian, it goes, oh, what is this? Is this mine? Why am I feeling so low? It's the melancholy, right? It's the romantic. It's the martyr in one sense, you know, the one who has just, there is no willpower here. You know, the waves are bigger than I am. And Neptune was the king of the sea. He was the one who moved the oceans. And the ocean, if you look at Earth, there is just one ocean on Earth. You have little puddles that are locked in Earth here and there, but there is only one ocean. And the weather system is also related to Neptune because the ocean is the clouds. You know, these, you know, you see, you know, it evaporates and it moves into clouds. So everything related to water. And we are a lot of water. We have a lot of water in our bodies. So it's related to imagination, fantasy, power of visualization. On a higher level, intuition. We need to have this fragile boundary in order to reach a higher awareness. You can't get to God by being locked off. You have to be open. You have to be sensitive. But the challenge with sensitivity is oversensitivity. From oversensitivity comes paranoia. From oversensitivity comes emotional challenges, right? What is this? How did it end up in me? From sensitivity comes parasites. Oh my God, people are feeding off my energy, you know? So, you know, boundaries, this is one of the key words. And it's probably all of us had like a very violent Neptune in Pisces experience lately. I just recently, you know, I'm still in it, Neptune square Neptune. I forget everything. I mean, it's like I'm just completely lost. It's not a bad experience. I'm feeling quite happy about it. I'm extremely inspired. But other people might feel frustrated when I can't say, oh, it's Friday today. Or, you know, I'm lucky to I have never forgotten so many things in my entire life before. It's getting creepy. Thank goodness Neptune is soon losing its grip on the South Node. Very, very soon. This is the pineal gland, and it is also related to Neptune. Neptune's hormone is melatonin. You know, it's what we use to sleep. So it's all about these dream states. So the pineal gland is at the core of your head. We call it the cave, and we call the pineal gland the brain of the soul. And look at this beautiful. They knew about that stuff way back when. In exactly what they were talking about when they talked about the eye. You know, they talked about the pineal. And they know, they think at least from different kinds of studies, that DMT, what they call the God molecule, also is produced in the pineal gland. So this is a gland that is the gateway to alternative, ways of being in life. It's, well, if you're awake and you are very much attuned to that level of yourself, you can space out very easily. Like, you're there, but you're not. You're there and you're somewhere else too, you know? So this is like, it is really, you know, it's really challenging when people have this center active, because we have to relate to everyday life too. You know, it is relatively true, even though we might find it from a more ultimate truth point of view to be, why do we have to do this? It's not real, you know, like the world of illusions. And when we get to the pineal gland through meditation, our ego is also being extremely challenged. People who have gone through these ayahuasca experiences, for instance, they tell us that the ego dissolves. You know, that kind of thing. And then they can look through the veils and they talk to nature and stuff like that. And it is that, and we know that when the energy moves away from the forehead and it moves back into the brain, you lose your ego, and thereby you open up to something bigger. Which is fine if you're in a meditation retreat and you can stay there for the rest of your life, and the world has you have no obligations to the world if you were a monk, for instance. But most of us have to do our dishes and clean our teeth and do stuff like that. And for that, we need, you know, to be a little bit more balanced in our brains. Worst case scenario with Neptune is that you can get, problems with concentrating, problems with relating to the here and now, problems with hearing what people are saying to you. You know, escapism is part of it. When it's really bad, you know, you have people fleeing into drug abuse and stuff like that, just to get that experience of peace. Because the pineal is peace. It's silence. It is that point in life where everything is silence, where you're back in perfection again. And having that attachment to the womb of life, where you're in heaven, that's the healing that people who are very influenced by Neptune, they need to find a spiritual sanctuary in their lives so they can retreat from time to time and regain sanity through finding peace. Right? Otherwise, it'll just be too much. This kind of sensitivity is not to be taken lightly. It can drive people crazy, you know? So we need to, when we see a chart that has a lot of Neptune, from a spiritual point of view, I mean, there is only one way to learn to live with those kind of energies, and it is, you know, learning how to quiet the mind, living a simpler life, coming in touch with yourself, you know, different things, of course, but, you know, these will always work. Having a spiritual practice, especially today. I mean, the world is really interesting from an energetic point of view, but it's very chaotic and dangerous, and it's, you know, it's scary, you know, so we just have to retreat and find the connection upwards again. All right, so I talked about the different stages. You know, the first stage of Neptune, you come directly from the womb. You know, you come in, it's like, you can compare it to the first time you came to Earth and an apple fell in your head and you wondered, oh, that's nice. Well, maybe I can eat this. I'm hungry, you know, and you ate it and all went well. And next time you were hungry, something else just fell into your lap and you started eating that too, and it turned out to be poisonous. Oops. That wasn't so good, you know. And sometimes when you have lost in the magic of life is what we call this stage, and it is when, you know, you have synchronicities and everything is happening and it's all good, and, you know, but then suddenly something bad happens, you weren't prepared for it, and, you know, you have no there. This is the most subconscious placement in a chart. Normally it is. Neptune is where you lack awareness and you need to develop awareness. And you need to wake up inside of it. So, you know, like if you see it from a karmic point of view or something, it could be those places. If you see people with it on the South Node, for instance, or South Node in Pisces, part of their selves might have retreated due to, of course, experiences on the outside that could have been incredibly victimizing. And they just retreated. And what do you do when you're exposed to something you don't have the power to do anything about? You numb yourself. You just you go into a numb state, right? But there is no navigation tool in this phase. And it can be very, you know, you see it sometimes if you have, it's almost primitive. You know, most people who get into astrology are not there. You know, they develop consciousness. Astrology develops consciousness. Our world develops consciousness. But we went traveling to Africa, and there you had like these crazy rites they did to perform to become more fertile and stuff. And everything we know about fertility, we would say immediately, this shit is not working. It's just dangerous. But they kept doing it because they, you know, it worked once. So they started, it's superstition, right? Mm-hmm. So it's having no real awareness. It can be very cool. Oh my, you run into magic from time to time on Earth, because Earth is like that. There's magic here. But the stage that I was running a little bit, you know, running ahead of myself, the chaos and the dysfunction. I mean, I remember Maurice said, if you don't brush your teeth, they will fall out. You know, that's how his metaphor, he used that metaphor. And I thought it was very poignant. It was exactly what it would be if you have no awareness that brushing your teeth is healthy for your teeth, they will fall out. And even though these are just general statements, when we get into the archetypes, we see we have to refine a little bit how it works for each archetype. But let's say, for instance, with Mars, lost in the magic of life, Mars, you know, I'm so super strong, I can do everything I want. I don't have to use my willpower. Everything just happens magically around me. And then the chaos and the dysfunction comes when, oh my, there's no willpower. You know, I didn't develop my willpower. So I was abused by somebody, right? Being trapped. Actually, stage innocence can also being trapped in something that is incredibly poisonous for you, like being in a womb almost. This is when you're in the womb and the womb provides everything for you. And whatever you get from the womb, not all of it is good. So that's why we need to wake up. I know a lot of Neptunians, they refuse to let go of their flow because it's so cool when it's flowing well. But you can't rely on luck in life, unfortunately. So in evolutionary astrology, we learned that everything flip-flops, you know, like polarity work. This is very important. You have that with Pluto too, right? Your Pluto polarity point, for instance. Now, in any archetype, you know, we have that. I'm Aquarius. I've learned a lot from Leo experiences, for instance, in my own life. So stage 3 is strengthening immunity through developing consciousness. And this is a Virgo phase. And this is when, you know, the Piscean says, I had enough of this. It becomes skeptical. I will not just give my heart away to anyone who, you know, because I am love. You can't, you know, it becomes a more critical phase. And this is also the part where the Neptune principle starts to really develop their, you know, get their talents forth. Lost in the magic of life could be like this wonderful creative child. I have these wonderful inspired moments, but I can't reproduce it. I can't seem to get it to the next level. This is where you get your talent to the next level, strengthening immunity in developing consciousness, using your skills. And that leads to public function and potential fame. This is when you practice and practice and practice. That's Virgo phase, right? And then you suddenly, you know, what Maurice discovered, and I totally agree with him, is that Neptune has a public position. It is where you get, you know, things just happens. You know, I have Mercury in Pisces. I started writing. The first thing that happened is I was published. I just learned the language, so and so, right? I wasn't a professional in that sense, but I just, you know, it's when you just fall into something. Because you took what was the magical child's gift, what came so easily and without effort, and you actually lost it, and then you strengthen it again by developing skills. And you can compare it to dreaming about beautiful music and being frustrated about not getting it out. So you have to develop your skills, and then the public function comes. And when you have that public function, whatever it is, work, whatever it feels, you go ahead and you defy your fears. Oh my goodness, I can do this, I can do that. Suddenly you feel like I can do anything. This is one of the higher stages of Neptune. You go into a high mode again. And it can be a little, you know, invincibility, you know, you can be invincible in this stage, work 12 hours and never feel tired, and, you know, take on the work for everyone, and so super happy to just be able to have, you know, have a public role, be part of something bigger. And you get to defy your fears. Are you strong enough? Yes, I'm strong enough. Are you independent enough? Yes, I'm independent enough. Are you free enough? I'm free, you know. Do you believe? Yes, I believe, you know. So you defy fear. It's a beautiful, empowering stage, but as we know from a spiritual point of view, the ego has its limitations. And even then you got to a new readjustment phase where you see, okay, I'm very good at this, but I can't fly yet, right? So it's a readjustment phase. Many people experience burnout syndrome. I think it is related to this because we know Neptune is related to the immunity system. And this is another readjustment Virgo phase, right? You just, okay, I just have to figure out how to make this work, you know. I have to work on myself, you know. I have to accept my limitations, and it's not the end of the world, you know. I have to let go. Mara, yeah, but go like that. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, my son came. All right, yes. So this is so that was the egocentric limitation and readjustment. I'll just close this door. This is Neptune. I live in a little Neptune, how do you call it? This is Neptune in action. All right, so the last part of it, which I think is most interesting and perhaps most challenging, I think, and it is spiritual truth, because after that egocentric limitation and readjustment, you just have to figure out, okay, I thought I knew this and then I didn't. And it is about correcting the ego. First, you develop the ego, and you do that in these stages. You have no ego here, right? No ego. And then you develop your ego, right? And then you let it go again. Not the way you did before, by totally eliminating it. No, by understanding what is its place. When shall you use it? What is truth and what are ideals? You know, have you gone to a place in your life where you're not listening to life anymore? You get so much willpower that you just ignore the signals. And a spiritual human being, in what I've experienced from these people that I can call enlightened, is that they have this incredible humility, this incredible strength of truth. And there was somebody who asked Adyashanti, well, when do I know whether or not I should lay down and rest, or whether or not I should push on and do some yoga or do some of these spiritual things? And he said very, very beautifully, he said, well, you just have to figure out what is truth inside of you. You know, you just have to be super honest with yourself. So it is a difficult planet. And here I have 10 minutes left, darling, and we have 10 minutes for your chart now, Trace. So you can unmute yourself if you like, right? And I looked at your chart and I thought, well, she can, this is Neptune. As we can see, Neptune is here on the ascendant, and it is taking a lot of space in your chart, you might say, right? Yeah. And yeah, this is not for amateurs. These are for hardcore people, you know. It's not easy. So you know, talk about...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. When we talk about the immunity system and willpower and saying no and strengthening the ego, this is what you're supposed to do, because it's in the first house of the ego, right? The first impulse in the chart is Aries. Aries is, no, I don't want this anymore. You know, no, enough of this. And it even squares your Mars on top of it, the principle of Aries. So it's a double whammy, you know, Neptune in the first house, square Mars. So it's really, you know, all these stages about, you know, loss in innocence. What is Mars? Mars is our ability to protect ourselves, to stand up for ourselves, to say no. And when you have Mars, Neptune, the anger principle needs to be, first of all, strengthened. You know, having the right to say no to abuse, for instance, right? First of all, in the stages of no immunity, I would say, like, well, it is the metaphor of somebody runs over you and then they back off and run over you again. You know, like that kind of thing, like being taken advantage of, or being trapped in a place where you can't get out, like in a relationship, or whatever you say no, people won't even listen to it. It's just neglected in a way. You also have the sun in the 12th house, which is the creative, magical child. So this is really something of, it's difficult for you to be seen for who you are, you know. People, you know, like, it's like you're in, and I think this is what your experiences from childhood, like you were invisible, like, yeah, unless you were a very nice girl then, of course, with Venus in Capricorn on the South Node. Behave, you know. But you are a very creative person. I know this, you know. I know, I've seen your art, for instance, and this comes probably very easy for you, but it can't be on demand, you know. Like, if you can't do it on demand, like you can't get your production levels up, you will probably feel frustrated. Like, you can't find inspiration. Like, if inspiration is blocked, how do you get to that place where inspiration is not blocked? Well, I think that has a lot to do with your, you know, this is your evolution to move past some of these very challenging challenge with these challenges that comes from Mars square Neptune, and the well, sometimes, you know, with Mars there's depression, and with depression there's lack of motivation, so you can't get the engine going, right? It could also be burnout problems, if you had too many, if there's been too much, I'd say, stress from the environment coming to you always, like survival stress, having to survive all the time and do them, and all these things, and it blocks your creative impulses, right? In order for us to move into a space where we get connection with the higher self, we need to also release the emotional fights we have, right? And sometimes I look at the Mars Neptune and I think, oh, that's Don Quixote for you. Like Don Quixote, he was the guy who went out to save the world, and he ended up a little delusional and ended up trying to kill off a lot of windmills. Like he was fighting. It's barking up the wrong tree, so it's really using the energy constructively, and you will learn how to do that in this life, like especially now. Saturn will, oops, what is Saturn doing right here now? It is crossing your ascendant, and it will give form to it will give structure, and it will give direction to this Mars Neptune that is bouncing off the walls sometimes. And I can see, not that we need to go so deeply into it, but whatever was not fair in your life, whatever injustice you experienced in your life, whatever anger that sort of gave you, it could also be something that is, blocking a little bit of you constructively using your energy. You just have to pick your fights. And this is the egocentric limitation adjustment phase of Mars. Because first you got to learn to be angry and say, no, you can't have this now. The shop is closed. And then you have to say, after a while, that, okay, I can't say no to everything. I have to open up to something, right? And then you have to accept that then when that happens, that you also will perhaps be exposed to danger or to people who are not clean in their energies. Like they have sort of energies that challenge your boundaries a little bit, right? They will still be there because you can't change the world. You can only change how you react to the world. And that's when Don Quixote leaves, because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to change the world. Instead, you have to become like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gitas. Fight them if you have to. If it's truth and you have to stand up for it, you have to fight them. If not, let go, be love. Forgive, let go, be love. And this is so you can't just be love and not have an opportunity to express your energy. That would be, then you will go into victim mode again and feel, this is not fair, like then you will feel extremely trapped in something, like you can't do anything about it. But you can't do everything about it. You can just do what you're supposed to do about it, right? And the rest is up to life. And this is also, it is a very, there are many things here, especially the North Node is in Cancer. You're being told to take better care of your own personal emotions, of course. You have them. It's very hard for a person with a lot of Neptune to actually accept that, yes, I do have personal emotions. It is like, instead of just going by the duties and the guilt and whatever goes with the South Node in Capricorn, which is very driven by traditions, and it can be a little conservative. So you just have to open up to receive nurturance and love. And in order for that to happen in a good way, you have to be more visible. Like people are not telepathic like you are. You're telepathic, but they are not. So you have to inform them. She has Mercury in the 12th house conjunct Uranus as well. Her mind zips up into a lot of things very quickly. But others are like, you have to speak whole sentences. I do not understand when you just say 3 words and you leave the rest to what does that mean? So it's developing the language to express your emotions and getting in touch with them, Moon in Aquarius. So it's actually coming down to earth, and being born. I always say when I see the sun in 12th house, I have less than a minute now, that there might be some issues with Earth is not an ideal place. No, it's not. It is not. But you will make it a better place if you just decide to finally step onto this Earth and live and have an immunity system that can transform whatever comes your way. Yeah. So, well, you never had a chance to say anything, but you can tell me afterwards if you like, I'm sorry about that. I hope it was okay, Yeah.
Really good. Quick question. When you said Neptune was the place of the most subconscious area in the chart,
Yeah.
and doesn't Jeff say the ascendant is also the most subconscious area?
Yeah, I would say, you know,
Did he say more?
yeah. Good question. I would say that, yeah, this is your need to develop faith. You need to be conscious of your need to develop faith in yourself and in life. You have a lot to give, Star. You're a very talented person. You have to start believe it too. Yeah, because that, you know, that's going to help you so much in your path. Faith. You will lose your religion a couple of times during your life. It doesn't really matter. Lose whatever's not truth. You know, it's really, I mean, we can't be superstitious. We have to be truthful. And this is the whole Neptune on the Sagittarius ascendant. It has to do, what is your truth and how do you make that truth work for you? Is it something you can, you mean, having a vision is nice, but you have to also have a vision that is so juicy that it will get your projects flying, right? Yeah, it has to endure the test of times, right? You can't change your mind next day. Oh, I don't have vision today. I'm sorry, I changed my mind. But tomorrow, I might have it again. Yeah.
Okay,